Hey, what's up, guys? Just making this video for the second time because I've recorded the first time. Turns out my fan was on next to me, and since it's a crappy microphone here, ended up being pretty horrible to listen to. I hope it goes better this time, right? So I wanted to talk about a few things when it comes to WoW. Recently, the corruption itemization and what Ian said his on his interview regarding how they are looking towards corruption uh, going forward as a method to replace Titan forging and war forging. And when shadows where this came about with 8.3, and this came to replace the whole Titan forging and war forging, which was throughout the time it was implemented turned out to be a pretty bad thing. The whole value of gearing, especially when it comes to gear names, and the value of the gear, it just went down. People just ended up start chasing around eye levels rather than your gear name. Like if you take classic, warriors go for ravager. You don't have that kind of thing now. It's just people just, well, not now, but pre-corruption 8.2, people just try to go as much as possible to get an eye level bump from Titan forging or war forging in whatever item that they get. People just end up chasing numbers and accept the actual gear. So to replace that, they came up with corruption. And while Titan forging, war forging was the whole slot machine thing with RNG, um, corruption kind of ended up being the same thing. It's just you get a chance to get a corruption um, on an item drop, and to top it up with all certain corruptions. Let me check. I forgot the name. What is it? What is it called? Corruptions. Yeah. So infinite stars. Yeah. So certain corruptions like infinite stars just made your stats as a DPS just ridiculous. In fact, I saw a video with Preach on it. Preach with his wife. Actually, he gives his wife to play his class a little bit, and I think it was on a raid, and she just gets a ridiculous amount of yield out of it, even though she's not a WoW player, as he highlighted out. So that's kind of problematic because you kind of end up having these one or two corruption stats, like just being so overpowered by every other. I think, I mean, I haven't tested this yet, but I feel like, a decent, an average, perhaps a heroic grade with infinite stars could probably end up on par, if he's sound with the mechanics, on par with a mythic grade when it comes to damage dealing. And that's without any player agency, and that really diminishes a mythic raiders who doesn't have infinite stars but does the mechanic correct, and especially when it comes to doing the rotations correct to get the maximum yield out of your DPS. And the worst part of what I really felt troubling was when Ian had this recent interview with Wow Radio. It was a really good interview, by the way. Um, the questions were really great, and so was the answers that Ian gave up. But some raised questions, uh, especially when it comes to corruption, because Ian was saying that they want as maximum feedback back as possible from players regarding corruptions, because this is something they are looking at in a world without Titan forging and war forging, meaning basically the future. And as much as players embrace the ridiculousness of corruption system, because how ridiculous, battle for Azeroth generally has been throughout this whole expansion. Going forward, I don't think it's a really good thing to follow up with, and there are certainly some things that really makes you question what you know hidden motives Blizzard or Activision Blizzard has. Because imagine, I didn't check my auction house yet, but imagine if you get a BOE, a high level BOE with infinite stars. That would mean like people would be farming for it, A, and B, mythic raiders or heroic raiders or normal raiders, probably even LFR people, mythic plus key pushers, everyone would be chasing after this, and it'll sell into ridiculous prices in the auction house. And that would mean, on the other way around, you could obviously figure out that people will start buying tokens, subscription tokens, and selling them off to make gold. And that's kind of like sneaking in a pay to win microtransaction market into your game, because people are not directly buying an item that makes them overpowered. Rather, people are buying a token, selling it off, and using that gold to buy an item that makes you ridiculously good at the game. So, I mean, I'm here just a WoW player who's having this thought, this is a perfect way to go into pay to win model. I'm sure Blizzard, or anyone who's been working with Blizzard, Activision, Blizzard, has already had thought of this, and it's kind of troubling if they had thought of it and this is the kind of the implementation they're going with. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not going to come in Shadowlands 9.0, 9.1, 9.2, but I have doubts whether this is something that's going to come up in 9.3 or 10.0, 11, anything in the future of WoW, especially beyond the next expansion, beyond Shadowlands. So yeah, I really hope. I guess I just spoke about this because WoW has been increasingly pushing towards a microtransaction model. If you take, I guess I needed a bit of water. If you take the what do you call it, cash shop? Yeah. If you take the cash shop, you already have mounts in there. I think BFA alone had about 4 or 5 cash shop mounts, all the way from the Dreadweight to more recently, no, not the Walpine Familiar, but the other one, the Fade Dragon, I guess, some kind of a dragon. I think that's the last one that came out in the cash shop. So all the way that. And even before, if you take the War of Thorns episode, it was just basically a month's worth of subscription, and in the end you just get because the content was nothing any good. Even the War of Thorns content was nothing. It was just a scenario that was time gated, and you just in the end get them out just for participating in that. It's kind of dumb. So yeah, they've been pushing in that, especially mounts, and it's heavily normalized now. It's like it's so despicable that people really don't even speak about it, because people are tired of speaking about it, and that's the kind of thing they're pushing towards. I feel, making people tired and making others buy on it. I've certainly seen few prominent people speaking for it, which is alarming. And then you have, on the other hand, I guess cash shop mounts, you could say, the not mounts, cash shop transmogrification items. I mean, they're not directly in the cash shop, but the whole explorers transmog was available for refer a friend, and if that friend buys into 6 months subscription, if I remember. So that's again basically sneaking in microtransactions, subscriptions, and I was thinking, wow, that whole transmog item, and the backpack was an excellent reward for, I guess, archaeology profession. How amazing that would be. I mean, people were speaking about that as well. So I won't be surprised if transmog items will find its way into the cash shop. But I mean, okay, you could go for skins, you could go for. I'm not saying that you could go for mounts, because that's something I'm really against. But um, now I guess we are in this position where we feel threatened, like you could potentially, Blizzard could be walking into the whole pay to win model as well. So yeah, I kind of feel alarmed about that. I hope I'll be proved wrong, or in a future discussion that they will say that strictly not something they're looking forward to going to, and especially something like infinite stars is just something they didn't really experiment much, and just came towards fixing it, although they did a corruption rebalance and they did not change anything to infinite stars. I'm just looking at the graphs, and it's still overpowered. So yeah, I really hope they don't push into that territory. Till another video. Peace.